الحمد لله وحده والصلاة والسلام على من لا نبي بعده أما بعد. Welcome to the second lesson on Arabic grammar. Just a recap from last week. We discussed that anything that we utter could have a complete meaning on its own or has clear meaning yet dependent on something else. The word that has a meaning is called kalima. And in Arabic, there are three types of kalima: ism, fi'l, and harf. Ism is a noun, which is time unbound, whereas fi'l is a noun, so fi'l is a word which is time bound with past, present, or future. And then there is harf as well, which is dependent on another word to give its complete meaning. Now we talk about the signs of ism, some at the beginning, like harf jar, like al before a noun, or sifat mushabba, inna, annaka, anna, lakinna, layta, or munada, which is ya, o, so and so, or it could be in the middle, which is the diminutive form of certain noun, or it could be at the end, which is tanween. Tanween is nonation, dhammatan, fathatan, kasratan, two zabar, two zay, two pesh. If there is a ya of nisbah, ya of relation, a connection, a belonging, then that is a sign of a noun as well. Tathniya, with a noun, you find tathniya is dual. In noun, ani, aini, aini. Or you find jama, salim, una, ina, ina. Those are the specific signs which are normally found in noun. Someone just asked a question about fail having una as well. Ta'buduna, ta'budani, tathniya. But there is a distinction that there is alamati mudari, the sign of imperfect tense, which is alif ta ya nun in the beginning, or at the beginning. And that suggests that this is not the tathniya of noun. But inshallah, when we cover fail, we talk about that. Ta marbuta at the end, like Talha, Khadija, Aisha. This ta at the end suggests the word is feminine, even if it's the name of a masculine. Now we mentioned that we look at noun from four different aspects. So it is four faceted. It would be either definite or indefinite. It would be singular, dual, or plural, masculine or feminine, or in any of the three cases, marfu, mansub, and majroor. So each noun would take one from each of those four categories. So let's talk about the first classification, which we started last week, but just we go slightly bit more into the details. Ma'rifa and nakira, the definite or the indefinite. Nakira, something which we are unknown of. We do not know exactly what. An unknown person or a thing, very general. A house, for example, a pen, a man. We do not know which man, which pen, which house we are talking about. It could be any man in the world. So this is nakira, that's something unidentified. It's called indefinite in English. And then there is ma'rifa. Ma'rifa is more definite. It is specified. You know who you are talking about. When you speak about someone, you have identified that person with certain signs to it, certain ways of making sure that that is a particular individual or a thing which is known to you at least and known to the person you are addressing. So there are certain signs that are not absolute, but generally found on nakira. Generally, there is a tanween on it, rajulun. If it is singular word, it would have a tanween, two zabar, two zay, two pesh. Kitabun, a pen. Qalamun, or a house. Baytun, or a man, rajulun. So this is how it would go. As I mentioned, it implies generality. You do not know specifically which book or which house or which pen you are talking about. It could mean one or few as well. So kitabun, a book. There is this sense of singularity there with tanween, generally, not all the time. By the way, these rules of nakira or tanween is not absolute. There are exceptions to it. Adabun, some punishment. Ajr, ajrun, some reward. Some of the indefinite articles or the noun do not take tanween. For example, awwalu. So there's no word called awwalun or akhirun. It doesn't, without al. Even without al at the beginning, it doesn't take tanween. It's awwalu, akhiru. There are very few exceptions like this. And the reason tend to be that they are diptotes, but we cover that inshallah ta'ala. Now, there are several types of nakira as well, but we deal with two mainly. One is ismu zat, that a being, an entity, something that exists, something, an object or individual that has an existential reality on its own. A man, a pen, a book, a house, a cow. So all these things, or animal or place or whatever, all of these have some identity and they have some existence. They have got their being. Unlike the sifa, which is the attribute, black, white, tall, short, ugly, beautiful. These are attributes, sifa. They are not found outside of an individual, a being. There has to be a that to express the sifa. You cannot have a sifa existing without a that, without a being. If you wanted to look for someone or something that is tall, the tallness would be within that object, that thing, that man. There has to be a being to manifest its sifa. So the sifa does not have external reality. It does not exist without a being. Being is that, and sifa is Hasan, for example, good, qabih, bad or ugly, tawil, tall, qasir, short. Likewise, insan, man, human being, deek, rooster, hajar, stone. So they are being. They have got their own absolute identity in a way that they have their own existence. They're not dependent on something else. They can found externally. They can be found externally. Okay, and then ma'rifa, on the other hand, it is much more specific. It is identified, specified, not general, not anyone. And you can make a nakira into ma'rifa by either putting al before it, alif lam before it, or making it possessed by a ma'rifah. So there is a possession or the relationship. Something is possessed by someone else or something else. I come to that with example and we will make it clear. So rajulun means a man, kitabun a book. You add al alif lam before kitab, it becomes al kitabu. So it becomes definite. Now you're talking about a specific book, not any book. In English, this is like adding the before book. So you say the book as opposed to a book. You say the book, the pen. It's like al. Okay, it's actually lam, but you have to have hamza before that. It's called hamzatul wasl, just al or lam. And there are several types of ma'rifah. We come to that. There's another way which I mentioned that you can make it possessed by someone else. Book of so and so. And if that so and so is ma'rifah, the book on its own becomes ma'rifah. Any book is any book, general book. But when you say this book belongs to so and so, then it becomes a specific book which that person owns. It is not any book in the whole world. For example, there are, say, 1 million books. And if you say a book, it could be any of those 1 million. But if you say the book of that man, or book of Zaid, book of Fatima, then all of a sudden, this book is now very specific. It is not any book. It is much more specific than general. This is called mudaf ila ma'rifah. But we cover that. This is one of the types of ma'rifah. So anyway, there are 7 types. First type is alam. Ismul alam. Ismul alam. Alam means flag, a banner, a hint, an indication, something that is like a badge on you. So you hold that flag, people would know who you are. And this is the proper noun given to any individual. So whatever name an individual is given, it's called alam, ismul alam, the proper noun. Hamid, for example, Zainab, Khalid, Umar, Ali, Fatima. So these are all proper noun. Now, even if there are 20 Zainabs in the family, 15 Muhammad in the family, it doesn't matter. The name which is given to that individual is different than the name given to someone else. They all have their own identity. When you call that person Muhammad, you only meant that person Muhammad, not the other one. So you've got a very clear idea who you are referring to. Alama. This is like a proper alama. Then the second one is ismul damir. Damir, a pronoun. Damir means something which is hidden. So when you say, Hamid is my friend, he lives next door. So this he is damir, pronoun. You use in place of noun. You do not keep saying Hamid is my friend, Hamid lives next door to me, Hamid is a very good boy, Hamid is what. You just say he, she, if there was a girl, or it, they, us, whatever. So all of these pronouns, they are noun as well, and they are ma'rifah as well. They are very specific, because when you point to someone as he, or when you talk about someone as I, we, you, he, she, that is very specific, and it is done after you've already mentioned that person's name, that individual's name. So the damir pronoun is ma'rifah as well. Then the third one is demonstrative pronoun, which is you're hinting to someone, you're indicating towards someone, oh, and then you put the, that man, hada, this boy, dhalika, that girl, this girl, these people, ulaika. So this is ismul ishara when you demonstrate towards someone. That's the proper noun as well. And then there is relative pronoun, which is called Ismul Mawsul. It is when you say that. This is the man that I met yesterday. Oh, he who I saw yesterday. So, who I saw, that which I. This is the car that I bought. So that, who, these words that when we use, they suggest a proper noun as well. And then Ismul Munada means the name that you call upon by saying, oh, so and so. You say, oh man. You are calling upon someone who is very clear to you who you are calling to. That man is right in front of you. Wherever he is, you know. In your mind, you're very clear who you are calling upon. It's called vocative. So, Ya walad, Ya Fatima. And then there is Mu'arraf bil-lam, means you made a nakira into ma'rifa by adding al to it, as we just mentioned. So baytun becomes al-baytu. Qalamun becomes al-qalamu. So by adding al, you are attaching the before it, and it becomes ma'rifa. And the last one is mudaf ila ma'rifa. So any of these ma'rifa, you just put another noun and relate it to that. So Baytullah. So Baytun is nakira, any house. But when you connect it with a ma'rifa word, Allah in this case, proper noun of Allah, then it is the house of Allah. It becomes very much more specific and ma'rifa. On its own, this was nakira. But with attachment to Allah, it becomes the house of Allah. Kitabul Binti, book of the girl. So the bint, al-bint is ma'rifa. Her book becomes ma'rifa as well because it is now identified entity. So those are the 7 types. Now normally nakira takes the tanween, but ma'rifa can also take tanween at times. So there are exceptions to the rule. For example, Muhammadun, Arabic words, Arabic proper names, they tend to have tanween as well, provided they have not got any of the reasons to be dipped out. But we cover that in future, inshallah ta'ala. Muhammadun, for example, tanween, yet it is ma'rifa because this is a proper noun. Alam, ismul alam. Zaydun, Zayd is a proper noun, and yet it has tanween. Khalidun. So not every name would have it, but those that can take it, they take it. Okay. Al-Tarif or Lam Tarif, that's fine. Now, one important point, that if you add al to make it ma'rifa, and nakira becomes ma'rifa, farasun becomes, faras means a horse, and you put al to it, then you cannot keep the tanween there. Even if it's ma'rifa, you cannot put al and tanween together. And it's common sense because tanween usually, generally denotes nakira, and al definitely denotes a ma'rifa. So you cannot have a word, a noun which is ma'rifa and nakira at the same time. It can only be one or the other. If you put tanween, that suggests it is nakira. If you put al, it becomes ma'rifa. So you cannot have al farasun. There would be no such thing as al kitabun. That's wrong. Al kitabu. The tanween gets dropped. You only put one sign there, one designation mark there. Al farasu. Okay. Let's do a few practices. So this is our famous surah that we all recite 17 times every day in our fard prayer, and further, many times in a day, about 20 for sunan and however many in nafil. So identify the asma, the ism. Plural of ism is asma. So be ism. So I told you, if you have harf jar before a word, which is ba in this case, it becomes ism. It is definitely an ism. Ism is ism, a noun. Allah is alam, a proper noun. Ar-Rahman is mu'arraf bil-lam. It was Rahman. We added, or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala added al to it to make it ma'rifa. Ar-Rahim likewise is ma'rifa. Then alhamdu Alhamdu. Hamd, praise is nakira, but you see there's al before it and it becomes ma'rifah. Lillahi, obviously the word Allah is ma'rifah anyway. Rabbil alameen, mudaf ilayh. So Rabb is actually ma'rifah as well, but I didn't touch upon that at this point because it would confuse, so we'll leave it there. But al-alameen, because of al is ma'rifah. Ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, already been there. Ad-Deen, ma'rifah with al. As-Sirat, ma'rifah with al. Al-Mustaqim, ma'rifah with al. And al-Ladina there as well, which is ma'rifah. Yes. Sirat is ma'rifah as well because it is mudaf to al-Ladina, and this is mawsool. And al-Maghdub, ma'rifah. Ad-Dallin, ma'rifah. Al-Kitab, with al, it is ma'rifah. Dhalika is ma'rifah as well. This is ishara, but I didn't get all those there just to make it simple. Lil-Muttaqin or al-Muttaqin is the same. Li al-Muttaqin it was, but it's written like this. Lil-Muttaqin is actually li al-Muttaqin, for the pious people, God-fearing people. Al-Ghaib, bi al-Ghaib becomes bil-Ghaib, just like lil-Muttaqin. As-Salah, al-Akhirah, al-Muflihun. So these are certain ones which are ma'rifah. The green ones are nakira. Hudan, tanween. Hudan, nakira. Sawa'un, tanween again, nakira. That or sifa? We leave it to you. An-nas, ma'rifah or nakira? Think about that. Don't look at the color. Al-yawm, ma'rifah. Al-akhir, because of al. Al-ard, ma'rifah. غشاوة نكرة. عذاب عظيم, both نكرة بالتنوين. مرض, by the way it's مرض, not مرض as we say in Urdu. It's not مرض, it's مرض. مرض, even if you want to say مرض, say مرض, not مرض. مرض. مرض, again تنوين. عذاب أليم, all نكرة. Okay, one more point in grammar, then we go on to sarf. In Arabic, as you saw in the examples here, certain letters with al, you pronounce the lam there. And with certain, you do not pronounce those lams, but rather you go straight on the letter next to it. So for example, you do not say al-Rahman, you say ar-Rahman. The al is gone. You do not say ar-Rahim, al-Rahim, you say ar-Rahim. So al-Rahim becomes ar-Rahim, means you drop that lam. Whereas with kitab, you would say al-Kitab, not ak-Kitab. You do not say ak-Kitab, you say al-Kitab. Al-Akhirah, al-Muflihun. But for salah, you would say as-Salah, not al-Salah. Have you noticed that? So certain letters, ad-Deen, you do not say al-Deen. As-Sirat, for Mustaqim, you say al-Mustaqim, not am-Mustaqim. Ad-Dallin, but with al-Maghdub. So on certain situation, in certain cases, you just go straight onto the letter. In certain, you go onto the lam. You pronounce the lam. So why is that? If you just remember this, these are the letters. Obviously, it's too many letters to remember or memorize. So if you know Urdu and you could memorize this one line, it would make your life a little bit easy. Khawf haq ik ajab gham hai. Khawf haq, the fear of Allah is a unique fear. The fear of Allah is a beautiful fear, amazing fear. So the letter which are there are all letters called qamari, means you have to pronounce lam with these. So you will say al-khawf, al-waw, al-kha, al-waw, al-fa, al-ha, al-qaf, al-hamza, this is hamza, al-kaf, al-ain, al-jim, al-ba, al-ghain, al-mim, al-ha, al-ya. So these are the letters which are qamari letters, means they are pronounced with lam, because with qamar you say al-qamar, whereas rest are shamsi letter, because for shams you say ash-shams, you do not say al-shams. So it's الشمس والقمر. الشمس والقمر بحسبان. الشمس. Straight onto sheen rather than lam. And here with qamari letters, you say al-qamaru. And it goes with all of these letters which are found in this statement, this long line. Okay, khawf haqqik ajab gham hai. Fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is an amazing fear. Okay, some vocabulary, some words from the book. So tamr. Tamr is date. Baytun, house. Hasanun, good, nice. Khubzun, bread. Zambun, sin. Sahlun, easy. Shay'un, thing. Daw'un, light. Qabihun, ugly. Kareemun, noble. Labanun, milk. Ma'un, water. Yawmun, day. Laylatun. When you stop, obviously you say layla. Yawm, ma, laban. But I'm just pronouncing just to get you used to those. And, signs or alama, the way they're pronounced. Waladun, boy. Bintun, girl. Hirrun, or qittun, cat, a cat. Kalbun, a dog. Baladun, city. Fawzun, victory. Okay, so let's do those. A horse. Horse is faras. With a at the beginning, you're suggesting one horse. You will say farasun, farasun. A man, rajulun. The ugly, al, you add al. Qabihu, qabih, ugly. Al qabihu. A cat, qittun or hirrun for male. Qittatun, actually hirratun is better. Hirratun for a female cat. The man, ar-rajulu. Rajulun, a man. Ar-rajulu, the man. The horse. Al-farasu. Farasun and al-farasu. A horse, the horse. Milk and bread. Milk is labanun. Wa and is wa. Labanun wa khubzun. Labanun wa khubz. The day. Al-yawm. A sin. Dhambun. Dham. The plural is dhunub. أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. أستغفر الله ربي من كل ذنب وأتوب إليك. ذنب. A sin. The sun. ولد. With the, you would add al. Al-waladu, the son. Al-waladu. Bintun, girl. You add al. Al-bintu. Al-bintu. The name, ismun is name. Al-ismu, but you pronounce it al-ismu. Ism is one of those few words which are pronounced like this. You do not say al-ismu. You rather combine together and say al-ismu. Al-ismu. Bi'sa al-ismu al-fusuqu ba'da al-iman. Al-ismu. A son. Waladun. A boy. Waladun. That's fine. Ghulamun. A boy. Ghulam is boy as well. Ghulam that we use in Urdu to mean slave is abdun in Arabic. Ghulam means a boy. Ibnun, a son as well. They use interchangeably. Ibn wa walad. Okay? Practice those and memorize those. Okay. You remember we mentioned that it is very important that we learn all those paradigms, all those scales, how they're pronounced, and just use it as your times table, practice it, and never forget. And then you'll be able to use it without much difficulty, really. So, huwa huma hum, hiya huma hunna, anta antuma antum, anti antuma antunna, ana nahnu. These are the 14 pronouns that they use in Arabic. So, with tenses, fi'l. Fi'l is called verb. In Arabic, there is madi, mudari, and amr. So we just talk about madi, mudari, and amr. So these are the three af'al, plural of fi'l, three tenses. Madi is past. Mudari has two further classification. So mudari, two. It means hal and it means istiqbal. Hal means present, istiqbal means future. So mudari has hal wa mustaqbil, both present and future. Present and future. So when you say this is mudari form, it would mean present and future both. Like you abada, he worshipped. Ya'budu, he worships or he will worship. Both are the same. Now there's certain things that would make it more present type word, and certain words before it would make it more future specific. But we'll cover that inshallah ta'ala later. Okay. And then obviously with everything, it could be active voice, it could be passive voice. Maruf is active voice, majhul is passive voice. So you would have every fi'l has active form or a passive form. Active form, which is called ma'ruf. Don't confuse ma'ruf with ma'rifa. Ma'rifa is different, ma'ruf is different, and marfu is different. The marfu would come at some point as well. So they're quite similar, but they are different, okay, with the implications. So ma'ruf is active, majhul is passive. And if you know your active passive voices in English grammar, from English grammar, so there has to be a doer and the action and the doer. With majhul, you do not need doer, you just get the object. In Arabic, we call it maf'ul. Anyway, we'll cover that when we cover fi'l. Something about past tense. So as I said before, there are 14 scales or 14 different paradigms, different pronouns, different af'al. So for third person, for example, there are 6 forms. For second person, there are 6 forms. And for first person, only 2, which is good. Otherwise, it would have been 18. We start off from the third person generally, huwa. So likewise, for verbs, we start from the third person. And that tends to have only plain root letters, which could be 3 or 4. 3 root letters or 4 root letters. It is normally devoid of any extra letters. That is why they start with that. Okay, it can have 3 or 4 root letters, as I said, and normally they're denoted or identified with their root letters. The scale is identified with the root letter. Fa'ala, this is the scale. Fa'ala or fa'ila or fa'ula. They always go with fa, ain, and lam. So the first letter of any verb is called fa kalima. Ain is ain kalima. Lam is lam kalima. Fa, ain, lam. Fa'ala or fa'ila or fa'ula. Okay. Fa, ain, lam. If there was 4th, it would be lam again. Fa'lala. So fa'ala, fa'ala, fa'ala. This is fa kalima. So if I say abada, abada, he worshipped. So fa kalima is ain. Ain kalima is ba. Lam kalima is dal. Means this is at the position of fa. Ba is at the position of ain. Lam is at the position of lam. Sorry, dal is at the position of lam. This is how they would say, okay, fa kalima is that. So then you start thinking in those lines. This is their, a framework. The letters are put on that frame, on that structure. For example, jalasa, he sat. So this is fa kalima. Fa kalima is jeen. Lam kalima is ain. So ain kalima is lam. And sin is the lam kalima. So this is how it goes. Dakhala. Dal is fa position, fa kalima. Kha is ain position, ain kalima. And lam is lam position, so lam kalima again. This is how they would do it. Now, each verb has 3 basic points in it. There is a tense, means is it past or mudari, past being madi, or is it mudari, which is present and future together. And there will be doer in it. In Arabic, a fi'l has doer within it. That is why they make it separate from male, female, singular, dual, plural, third person, second person, first person, to make it easy to identify the doer in it. So when you say abada, there is he in it, and worship in it, and he did in the past. So all 3 are within that one word. That is why if you want to write a passage, a small passage in Arabic, and you translate that into English, it will be whole page, because it is much more concise and succinct in that sense. So each word has several different bits attached to it. Anyway, so this is how you try to learn your paradigm of verbs. So you would say abada, he worshipped. If they both worship, you would say abada. This alif is a sign of tasniya, and this is past form, by the way. This is old past. Abada, he worshipped in the past. Abada, they both men worshipped. Abadu, they all men worshipped. So they, men. Abadat, she worshipped. Abadata, again, alif is a sign of tasniya. So those 2 women worship. Abadna, this noon is a sign of plural female. Abadna. And then abatta, you, O men, you worship. Then abattuma, you too, O men, you 2 men, you worship. Abattum, all of you men, you worshipped, all in the past. Abatti, O you woman, you worshipped. Abattuma, see, abattuma is same for second, for the second person, but male and female, common between the 2. So 2 men are abattuma. 2 women again, abattuma. A man and a woman, again dual, abattuma, same. Abatti, you, O woman, you worshipped. Abattuma, same. And you all abattunna, that noon is a sign of feminine. Then abattu, I worship. Abadna, we all worship. And these are not used for we two or we all, female. No, there's no, for the first person, there are only 2 steps. First is I, and second is we. I and we, that's it. 2 pronouns only. 6 and 2 here. It becomes 14. We need to memorize this as well. So abada, abadu, abadat, abadata, abadna. Abatta, abattuma, abattum, abatti, abattuma, abattunna, abattu, abadna. You say it few times every day. Post it just where you lie in the bed and read it every time you go through that, or just on top of your computer. So just keep looking at that, keep reading it a few times, and inshallah ta'ala in the next week, 10 days time, you would be able to memorize it like that. And that would be very useful, inshallah ta'ala. Okay. Let's just go on to Kitab al-Asasi. So just a quick revision on that. We said kurrasa was a new word. Kurrasa is notebook. Kurrasatun wa kitab. Kurrasa and book. Qalam, you know, pencil or pen. Mistarah, ruler. Maq'ad, settee, sofa, chair. Maktab, table, desk. Mudarris is teacher. Sabura is board. And then, so those are the new words. And let's move on to the second dars. Dars-o-Thani. Dars-o-Thani, second lesson. Hujratu dirasa, classroom. Dirasa, study, learning. And hujra is room. Sunduq. Sunduq is box. Tabashir is chalk. Plural of tabshura. Tabashir, chalk. Chalks as a plural. صندوق وطباشير. Box and the chokes. Rather, and chokes without the, because there's no L there. Bab or babun, a door. Nafidatun, nafida, a window. Babun wa nafida, door and a window. Haqiba. Haqiba is satchel, bag, luggage. Kursi, chair. Haqibatun fawqa kursiyin. Satchel is on the kursi, on the chair. Masaha, masaha, eraser, duster, wiper, something that would remove. Sabura, board. Masahatun wa sabura. Masahatun wa sabura, board and the wiper, the duster, the eraser. Maktaba, library. Bitaqa, card, the ID card. Maktabatun wa bitaqa. Kharita, map. Kharita, kharita. Kharitatun, kharita. When you stop at rounded ta, you make it ha. Kharita, kharita. Hamil, holder, holder. Kharitatun wa hamil. And you know these words, we've been just repeating again. Tabashir, sunduq, nafida, window, chokes, box, bab, door, kharita, map, haqiba, satchel, kursi, chair, maktaba, library, bitaqa, your name badge or ID card or something. Masaha, eraser. Hamil, stand, hanger, holder. Fawqa, on something, above something. This is easy just to match. Obviously, you can just look at that. This is designed for those who do not have any clue about Arabic, obviously, so then it becomes a bit more useful to practice those. But alhamdulillah, you guys know a lot more than that. التدريب الرابع, fourth exercises. صندوق فوق مكتب. صندوق فوق مكتب. صندوق, box, is فوق, on, مكتب, on the desk. صندوق is on a desk. سبورة فوق حامل. Board is on a stand. قلم فوق كتاب. Pen is on the book. كتاب فوق مكتبة. Book is on the library, or you can say bookshelf. Same here. I will leave it there, inshallah ta'ala. In قصص النبيين, we mentioned that last week that Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, he's now doing his job to sort those idols out, and he left the big one with an axe in his hand. The people, when they returned, they found out what happened. So the title is Man fa'ala hadha, who did this? Man fa'ala, who is the third person? Who is that person who did it? Who did it? وَرَجَعَ النَّاسُ, raja'a, to return. النَّاسُ, the people. People returned. وَدَخَلُوا, and they entered. فِي بَيْتِ الْأَصْنَامِ, in the house of idols, meaning in their worship area. وَأَرَادَ النَّاسُ, and people wanted to, or they decided to, أَن يَسْجُدُوا, that they prostrate, لِلْأَصْنَامِ, for the idols, plural of sanam. Sanam is idol, asnam, plural. And yasjudu, that they prostrate, lil asnami, for the idols, li'annahu yawmu Eid, because it was Eid day. Yawmu Eid, it was Eid day. ولكن, but تعجب الناس. People became stunned, shocked, surprised. وَدَهِشُوا, and they became frightened, again stunned. وَتَأَسَّفَ النَّاسُ وَغَضِبُوا, and people became very upset. وَغَضِبُوا, and angry. They became very angry. قَالُوا, and they said, when you see parentheses like this in this book, it means this is a part of Quran. This is a Quranic ayah. مَنْ فَعَلَ هَذَا بِآلِهَتِنَا, who has done this to our Lord? Who has done this to our Lord? Just hang on a second. 1 second. Sorry about that. I need to open the door. قالوا سمعنا فتى يذكرهم يقال له إبراهيم. They said, we heard a young man who used to talk about them. He's called Ibrahim. قالوا, they said, أأنت فعلت هذا بآلهتنا يا إبراهيم? Did you do this to our Lord, O Ibrahim? قال, he said, Ibrahim alayhi salam said, بل, rather, فعله كبيرهم هذا. This big one of them, the biggest of them, did it. فاسألوهم, and ask these, means your Lord, the broken ones, إن كانوا ينطقون, if they could speak. وكان الناس يعرفون, people knew أن الأصنام حجارة, that the idols are حجارة, are stones. وكانوا يعرفون, and they knew أن الحجارة, that the stones لا تسمع, do not hear. ولا تنطق, do not talk. وكانوا يعرفون, and they knew أن الصنم الأكبر, that the biggest idol أيضا, likewise, is حجر, is a stone. وأن الصنم الأكبر, and the biggest idol لا يقدر, he is not able أن يمشي, to walk, that he walks, ويتحرك, and to move. He cannot walk or move. وأن الصنم الأكبر, and that the biggest idol لا يقدر, is not able to أن يكسر الأصنام, that he breaks the idol, meaning he cannot break the idols. فقالوا لإبراهيم, so they said to Ibrahim, أنت تعلم, you know, أن الأصنام, that the idols لا تنطق, do not talk, do not speak. قال إبراهيم, Ibrahim alayhi salam said, فكيف تعبدون الأصنام, so how can you worship the idols, وإنها لا تضر ولا تنفع, while they cannot harm or benefit. وكيف تسألون الأصنام, and how could you ask the idols, وإنها لا تنطق, while they cannot talk, ولا تسمع, and cannot hear. ألا تفهمون شيئا, do not you understand anything? Don't you understand anything? أفلا تعقلون, have you not got any sense? Have you not got any wisdom, understanding? وسكت الناس, people stunned, people were stunned, or they got stunned, they stayed quiet. وخجلوا, and they were embarrassed. نار باردة, نار باردة, موصوف صفة. نار, fire, باردة, cold, cold fire. اجتمع الناس, people gathered together. وقالوا, and they said, ماذا نفعل, what do we do? إن إبراهيم, indeed Ibrahim, كسر الأصنام, has broken the idols. وأهان الآلهة, and has disrespected denigrated the idols, al-alih, the idols, plural of ilahun. وَسَأَلَ النَّاسِ, and people asked, مَا عِقَابُ إِبْرَاهِيمُ, what is the punishment of Ibrahim? مضاف مضاف إليه. مَا جَزَاءُ إِبْرَاهِيمُ, what is the reward or punishment in that case of Ibrahim? What is the return of Ibrahim? كان الجواب, the answer was, حَرِّقُوهُ, burn him, وَانْصُرُوا آلِهَتَكُمْ, and help support your lords, your gods. وَهَكَذَا كَانَ, and this is what happened. أَوْقَدُوا نَارًا, they ignited fire. وَأَلْقَوْا فِيهَا إِبْرَاهِيمَ, and they threw Ibrahim in it. وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, نَصَرَ إِبْرَاهِيمَ, helped Ibrahim. وَقَالَ لِلنَّارِ, and he said to fire, يَا نَارُ, O fire, كُونِي بَرْدًا, become cold. وَسَلَامًا, and tranquil, a mean of safety. Ala Ibrahim, upon Ibrahim, means he feels good, not very cold, rather a cold with a nice feel to it, without harming him. وَهَكَذَا كَانَ, and this is what happened. كَانَتِ النَّارُ بَرْدًا, the fire became cold. وَسَلَامًا, and a peace, become peace. Ala Ibrahim, on Ibrahim alayhi salam. وَرَأَى النَّاسِ, and people saw, أَنَّ النَّارَ, that the fire, لَا تَضُرُّ Ibrahim, does not harm Ibrahim alayhi salam. وَرَأَى النَّاسِ, and people saw, أَنَّ Ibrahim, that Ibrahim alayhi salam, masrurun, is happy. وَأَنَّ Ibrahim, and that Ibrahim alayhi salam, salimun, is sound, safe, unharmed. وَدَهِشَ النَّاسِ, people became stunned, frightened, scared. وَتَحَيَّرُوا, and then they became astonished, gobsmacked. Man Rabbi, who is my Lord? وَذَاتَ لَيْلَةٍ, in one night, رَأَى Ibrahim, Ibrahim alayhi salam saw كَوْكَبًا, a star. فَقَالَ, and he said, هَذَا رَبِّي, this is my Lord. وَلَمَّا, and when غَابَ الْكَوْكَبْ, the star disappeared, قَالَ Ibrahim, Ibrahim said, لا, no, هذا ليس بربي, this is not my Lord. ورأى إبراهيم القمر, so Ibrahim alayhi salam then saw the moon. فقال, and he said, هذا ربي, this is my Lord. ولما غاب القمر, and when the moon disappeared, قال إبراهيم, Ibrahim alayhi salam said, لا, no, هذا ليس بربي, this is not my Lord. وطلعت الشمس, and the sun appeared, the sun rose. فقال إبراهيم, Ibrahim alayhi salam said, هذا ربي هذا أكبر, this is my Lord, this is big, the biggest. ولما غابت الشمس, when the shams, the sun, disappeared, في الليل, in the night, قال إبراهيم, Ibrahim alayhi salam said, لا, no, هذا ليس بربي, this is not my Lord. إن الله حي لا يموت, indeed Allah is alive, لا يموت, he doesn't die. إن الله باق, indeed Allah is ever present, لا يغيب, he doesn't disappear. إن الله قوي, بشك Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, indeed Allah is قوي, all powerful. لا يغلبه شيء, nothing can overpower him, night cannot overpower him, day cannot overpower him. والكوكب ضعيف, the star is weak. يغلبه الصبح, morning has overcame him or overcome him, has overwhelmed him, overpowered him. والقمر, and the moon, ضعيف, is weak. تغلبه الشمس, the sun has overpowered him. والشمس ضعيفة, and the shams is ضعيفة, is weak. يغلبها الليل, night has overpowered him. ويغلبها الغيم, and the cloud overpowers him. Night overpowers him. غيم, the clouds overpower him. It, the shams. Okay, ولا ينصرني الكوكب. The star does not or cannot help me. لأنه ضعيف, because it is weak. ولا ينصرني, and cannot help me القمر, the moon cannot help me. لأنه ضعيف, because it is weak. ولا تنصرني الشمس, and the sun cannot help me. لأنها ضعيفة, because it is weak. Shams is mu'annas, or feminine in Arabic. That is why you find that round at the end. ضعيفة. قمر and كوكب are مذكر. That's why ضعيف. وينصرني Allah, and Allah will help me. لأن الله حي, because Allah is alive. لا يموت, doesn't die. وباق, and present. لا يغيب, doesn't disappear. وقوي, and strong. لا يغلبه شيء, nothing can overpower him. MashaAllah. Okay, we leave it there. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك ونشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.